She's the embodiment of the perfect combo social media worships: beautiful, smart, successful. An MBA from Cambridge, presentation skills that could rival a TED Talk, and the kind of decision-making that saves her company millions of dollars. But then when she suggests celebrating at a Michelin star restaurant, and of course assumes the men in the group should pay, meaning the only 2 married men among the 10 of them, glances start bouncing around like a game of telephone. When she doubles down with "a real man always picks up the bill right," a few eyebrows turn into question marks. And when she genuinely wonders why her last 3 relationships fell apart despite her being obviously perfect, the irony practically writes a sarcastic caption across her forehead. You've seen this type before. At work, the sexy Latina colleague who's also a beast at data analytics, but fails miserably at reading romantic signals. In your friend group, the fitness junkie, who also happens to have a master's in biochemistry, can read a room like Google Analytics, yet believes her inherent value exempts her from learning how to maintain a relationship. And here's the question that both baffles and fascinates people. Why do so many women who have both brains and beauty make such catastrophic choices in love? Or to put it bluntly, in our style, why are so many attractive women emotionally and psychologically messed up? If you want the sugar-coated answer, turn this video off right now. But if you want the truth, the kind that strips away the glamour and exposes the mechanics behind why some of the most alluring women get stuck in the most sophisticated, self-destructive loops, stick around. Subscribe to Victory Stoic, hit the notification bell, and share this with a friend you know is living inside a beautiful but dangerous illusion. Because sometimes, what saves a person isn't praise. It's a slap of reality. Now let's get to my first breakdown, the death of truth. Let's rewind to where this tragedy begins. She's 12 or 13, still awkward, still fumbling through homework and teenage acne. A diligent worker bee and great at math. Yesterday, no one noticed her. Today, just one summer later, her body changes. And suddenly, the world around her changes with it. Eyes start following her everywhere. Not just the boys in class, but grown men, teachers, neighbors, even a friend's older brother. She's just been handed an enormous power, the kind of power that makes men change their tone, their behavior, even their logic. And she hasn't even figured out how it works yet. But here's the hinge moment from that second on. Truth gets unplugged. No one tells her she's wrong anymore. No one calls out a bad idea. No one warns her when her attitude is sabotaging a relationship. Why? Because they've learned fast that telling her the truth costs them what they want to keep: her attention, her affection, or their chance to get closer. This mechanism runs smoothly and ruthlessly. What she hears now is no longer right or wrong, but does this benefit the person speaking? Every piece of feedback is sugar-coated, every critique dulled down, every truth replaced by a more palatable tactical version. And this doesn't last for just a few months. It goes on for decades. In that time, she continues to grow in other areas, becoming an outstanding student, a high-performing employee, even a brilliant leader. At work, she's judged by results, so she learns fast, adapts, and improves. But in her love life, no one dares give her an honest score. This isn't a few harmless white lies. This is the complete death of truth in one of the most important areas of her life. And she has no idea. Compliments, "You're perfect. I've never met anyone like you," become her oxygen. Pushback, no matter how accurate, becomes a threat to eliminate. Slowly, piece by piece, she builds a map of reality. But the map is fake. She believes beauty and talent are enough to keep a man. Believes that as long as she's successful in the outside world, she doesn't need to learn how to maintain love. Believes that every breakup is always the other person's fault. Reality says otherwise. She's driving with a faulty map, but her speed keeps increasing. And when the crash comes, she gets fed a new set of lies to explain it away. Maybe you think this life sounds pretty ideal. So does she. That's why you meet women who are beautiful, intelligent, and accomplished, yet keep making the same mistakes in love. It's not because they're stupid. It's because truth in their world died a long time ago. Let me break down exactly how her environment over the past 20 years was built. I call it the extinction of truth. You know what happens when an ecosystem loses a key species? The entire environment collapses. Water turns murky, the soil dries up, and the remaining creatures either adapt or die. For beautiful women, that extinct species is truth. And like every extinction, it doesn't happen loudly. There are no cries for help, no smoke or fire. It starts silently. At the exact moment she becomes attractive in the eyes of men. At that moment, men, regardless of age status or education, collectively understood one brutally simple rule: praise and agree, and the door stays open. Challenge or speak plainly, and you lose access. And so the communication ecosystem around her automatically adjusted. Truthful statements vanished like animals hunted to extinction. In their place, a new species emerged: conditional compliments. They were smooth, sweet, and most importantly, safe for the speaker. Picture walking through a desert. Everywhere you look, shimmering oases appear crystal clear to the eye. But when you kneel down to drink, all you get is dry sand. That's the information environment an attractive woman lives in for decades. Everything she hears feels drinkable in the moment, pleasant, agreeable, but carries zero nourishment for surviving the harsh reality of relationships. The loop runs simply, so let me repeat. One hard truth, the door slams shut. One easy-to-hear line, the door flies wide open. The people around her see this, learn it, and copy it. No one wants to be excluded from the circle. And the reward is too tempting: attention, favor, maybe even intimacy. The result, a full-fledged culture of tell her what she wants to hear forms around her, as powerful as gravity. And the more years pass, the less capable she becomes of distinguishing what's real from what's merely spoken to maintain someone's spot inside her influence. This isn't just a few shallow, "you look nice in that dress" comments. This is a personal propaganda system running 24/7, so refined that she genuinely believes she's living in reality. Here's the picture. She's like a general on the battlefield. But her war map is drawn by people who only want to please her, not by those who want to win. They color green where there's a minefield. They sketch a bridge where there's only a chasm. And so she marches forward full of confidence, right up until her entire army plunges into the pit. The problem isn't a lack of intelligence. Many of these women are brilliant minds, PhDs, CEOs, gifted artists. But intelligence in work cannot save you from blindness in a truth-extinct environment. No one can be wise if they've gone 20 years without hearing real data. And because her entire romantic strategy, her view of men, and her grasp of human nature are built on a false foundation, every outcome skews wrong. She doesn't realize that men outside her sphere of influence don't operate like the ones who always nod and agree around her. She thinks unconditional tolerance is standard. She believes beauty and talent are enough to keep a man no matter her attitude. Of course, she assumes being with her is the greatest luck of his life. And since he's already beaten out countless others to win her, it's only natural that the effort to keep her should come entirely from him. This is why when a relationship falls apart, she's bewildered. She has no idea why, because every advisor around her, from friends to male colleagues to men trying to date her, all insist, it's not your fault. You're perfect. And so the faulty map gets reinforced, the loop continues. All men are terrible. She's the victim for the 10th time. The tragedy is that with each passing year, this information desert expands. She loses the chance to learn from her mistakes at 20, then at 30, then at 40. until one day she realizes those mistakes have hardened into habits. This is the mechanism of truth extinction, a system that runs on its own, sustains itself, and is almost impossible to break from the inside. Because to break it, she'd have to do the one thing she's been trained her whole life to resist: hear uncomfortable truths. And if you're a man dealing with this type of woman, or a beautiful woman who wants to break the cycle, understand this: the system won't stop on its own. It ends only when someone has the courage to set a real glass of water down in the middle of the mirage-filled desert. And she's thirsty enough to drink it, even if it's bitter to the core. So how has her psychology been shaped by this long-term false conditioning? She's lived for years in a world where truth has been systematically removed, and that doesn't just warp perception. It erodes the ability to self-correct. Like an athlete training in a room full of distorted mirrors, the more she practices, the more her form is off. Yet she believes she's perfect. Her first reflex when someone disagrees, not to listen, but to raise her shield. She can't tell the difference between baseless attacks and warnings meant to save her. In her world, there are only two types of people: good people who nod along, and bad people who dare to push back. And that's the fastest way to pick the wrong friends, love the wrong men, and trust the wrong words. Confidence. She has plenty, but it's false confidence built on sinking sand. For years, every piece of data in her head has been bent to keep her comfortable, not strong. So when reality hits, the shock is 10 times harder. Repeat mistakes, no problem, just blame him. Never dig deeper, never extract a lesson. Her emotional skill set stays frozen in place even after 10 failed relationships. Most importantly, she's lost her internal value compass. This relationship is still fine, exists only when someone else says so. A fake compliment is enough to make her overlook glaring warning signs. And this is fertile ground for manipulators. She grows more accustomed to the warmth of manipulators than the cool steadiness of the sincere. If she feels the heat of a manipulator, she pulls closer. If she feels the cool air of someone genuine, she pushes away. In a relationship where one person can't maintain it, or see a partner's core clearly, and the other is toxic, it's no mystery why it's doomed to be painful and end in ruin. But every flattery bubble has an expiration date. When age starts chipping away at her physical advantages, the number of people willing to play the agreement role drops sharply. Just like poor EQ cues, messy roommate habits, bad social manners, or odd behaviors that once got glossed over, these start to stand out once the filters of beauty and prestige fade. You know how it goes: spend enough time around her and sooner or later, people's eyes open. When that happens, reality will hit her straight in the face, but she'll have lost 20 or 30 years of practice in dealing with it. The fall won't just hurt. It will be much harder to get back up. If you see yourself in these words, or if you love someone like this, take this as a warning. Time is not on your side. The longer it goes, the harder it is to fix, and the more brutal the crash will be. This is exactly why Victory Stoic exists, to give you the truth you won't hear anywhere else. So what about the environment of an average woman? An average woman lives in an environment where truth still exists. No one invests all their time and energy into pleasing her at all costs. That creates a completely different ecosystem. Compliments are enough to be pleasant, but not enough to cloud judgment. Honest feedback might sting in the moment, but acts as vitamins for her awareness. For example, if she asks her boyfriend to buy her an expensive handbag they can't afford, and she already has plenty. He might say, "I'm saving for our future together. I'll show you what I mean later. For now, let me take you somewhere cozy for dinner instead of getting that bag." That's not ruining the date. It's a sincere response paired with a solution. Or if she loses her temper, a friend or coworker might say outright, "The way you reacted earlier was a bit much." At first, it might bruise her ego, but later it becomes an anchor point for self-adjustment. That's why average women get constant reality injections. Every disagreement is a test of a man's attitude when he's not bending to her will. Every no is a mirror showing her who genuinely cares versus who's just taking the shortest route to get in her good graces. Over the years, they develop a fairly accurate scanner, the person who tells the truth even when it risks upsetting her point, the one who just nods along and indulges her worst habits minus. This also explains why they can spot green flags more easily. A man with principles who stands his ground, even when it's not in his short-term interest, is worth keeping. He won't stay silent when he sees you hurting yourself, and he won't agree to bad choices just to keep the peace. In contrast, very beautiful women rarely experience situations like this. When they make unreasonable demands, men smile and nod, not because they agree, but because they don't want to lose the chance. When they behave poorly, instead of giving feedback, people let it slide to avoid conflict. As a result, they miss out on the most important lessons: how to tell the sincere from the fake, where the line is between acceptable and over the line. As Epictetus once said, "If anyone tells you that someone speaks ill of you, do not make excuses but answer, 'He was ignorant of my other faults, or else he would not have mentioned only these.'" The person who dares to point out your flaws rather than flatter you may be the one giving you the chance to become wiser. Average women learn this early because they haven't been deprived of the gift called truth. And this is where the crucial question appears. In a world where the reward for a sweet lie is far greater than the cost of telling the truth, who still has the incentive to be honest? The answer: only a few rare groups of men, those who put principles above personal gain. Those who can't read social cues and end up speaking bluntly without realizing it. And male family members whose interactions aren't driven by sexual interest. They are rare exceptions in an environment designed to eliminate honesty. There is a tiny minority of men who will tell the truth to a beautiful, accomplished woman, even knowing full well it will cost them points. But they're as rare as raindrops in the desert. Just 3 main groups, and if you're a woman listening to this, you should know how valuable they are, and why you often push them away. The first group are principled men, the ones whose internal moral compass outweighs every desire. To them, telling the truth is a duty, not a choice. You ask, they answer, even if the answer keeps you up at night. For them, lying to win your favor is a stain on their character. Noble as it sounds, this group is often the first to be eliminated because they refuse to play the game of constant nodding and unconditional praise. The second group are men who simply can't read social signals. They might be on the autism spectrum, or they just lack a social filter. They don't see the point of bending the truth to keep the peace. They'll casually say, "Wasn't that a bit harsh?" right in the middle of a crowd, without realizing they've just lit a match over a gas tank. For them, accuracy matters more than feelings, and your emotional world isn't even on the map they navigate by. The third group are male relatives, fathers, brothers, uncles, men who aren't influenced by sexual attraction when interacting with you. They have a long-term stake in you, not wrecking your own life, and they're willing to weather your emotional storms just to keep you grounded in reality. They'll tell you, "That guy's bad news, you should stay away," without worrying about being unfriended. But here's the problem. Even when a beautiful woman is lucky enough to have one of these 3 types in her life, she will often consciously or unconsciously push them out of her circle of influence. Why? Because when you're used to living in a sugar-water lake of flattery, the salty sting of truth is hard to swallow. It ruins the sweetness, confuses you, even bruises an ego that's been overindulged for too long. A father might say, "You need to learn how to listen to people." But if you're addicted to adoration, you'll immediately find a group of unconditional supporters to drown out that voice. A blunt friend might point out your flaws, but you'll cut contact and say, "He's just negative." The result, you drive away the rarest sources of truth you have. and keep only the easy echoes around you. That's the fastest way to build a gilded cage, beautiful, luxurious, but locking you inside far from the reality that could save you. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change. For I seek the truth which never harmed anyone. The harm is to persist in one's own self-deception and ignorance. The truth has never killed anyone. What kills is the willful decision to remain in your own illusion. But to hear and accept the truth requires something that early untested power rarely has: wisdom. And this is where we get to a dangerous condition in social psychology: power without wisdom. This kind of power here, beauty and physical allure, often comes too early, far too early. A girl can be just 14 or 15 and already receive special attention from those around her. No achievements required, no failures endured, no proof of skill needed, she still holds a lever that influences the behavior of others. Sounds wonderful, but in reality, it's like placing a crown on the head of someone who hasn't yet learned to keep their balance. Picture a 15-year-old queen ascending the throne. The crown gives her the power to command, but no one teaches her how to rule. Ministers who once advised frankly disappear, replaced by courtiers who nod along to every whim. Day after day, she makes decisions not based on understanding, but on who dares to disagree. And the result is a royal court turned into a stage play, where everyone performs only the role the queen wants to see. In business or politics, power is usually the reward after a string of failures, mistakes, and hard-earned lessons. Those truly at the top have paid the price to understand what works and what doesn't. But with beauty, power arrives as a free gift, skipping the training phase entirely. No one forces you to learn how to hold it, and no one dares to make you pay the price when you misuse it. The problem is power without wisdom self-destructs. It's like a sharp sword in the hands of someone who has never trained. At first, it makes the crowd cheer, fear, and comply. But the more wildly you swing it, and the more likely it is to slip, and one day it turns back on you. When that cut comes, it doesn't just slice away romantic opportunities, it also takes the one thing you can't buy back with makeup or dresses: genuine respect. And so the cycle becomes obvious, like a song stuck on repeat. At first, there's passion, then tension, finally departure. The faces change and the scenery changes, but the script stays the same. You can blame toxic men as many times as you want. But if the outcome repeats, that means there's only one constant variable: you. From a Stoic perspective, the only way to break this cycle isn't to wait for the right person, it's to become the right person yourself. That may sound philosophical, but in reality, it breaks down into 3 very practical steps. Anyone can try. Step 1. The Truth Journal. Every time a relationship ends or is on the rocks, instead of asking, "Why did they do that?" ask, "What did I do to contribute to this?" Write down 3 specific actions of your own that you believe made the relationship worse. You don't have to take all the blame, but you must be completely honest. This is how you pull yourself out of the passive victim role and into the active observer role. Step 2. The Friend Filter. Identify 3 people who dare to speak the hard truth to you, and they're usually the ones who irritate you the most. If you don't have any, that's a red flag. Your environment is just an echo chamber of agreeable voices. Actively seek them out through mentors, communities, or family, and invite their direct criticism. Stoics believe that the true teacher is the one who points out your flaws without fear of offending you. Step 3. The 30-day no pushback challenge. For 30 days, whenever someone gives feedback or criticism, instead of getting defensive, say, "Thank you, I'll think about that." You don't have to agree immediately, but you must resist firing back. The goal is to train your brain to receive difficult information without letting emotions hijack your response. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." That's the real test. Are you willing to temporarily lose face in exchange for truth and growth? Or will you keep collecting worthless compliments, maintain your shell, and repeat the same old tragedy? This method won't promise you'll land Mr. Right in 2 months, but it guarantees this: the next time you step into love, you'll bring wisdom that's been battle-tested, not a fragile ego wrapped in fake praise. And that is the real starting point for a strong, lasting relationship. Conclusion: beauty and intelligence. They sound like a first-class ticket on the train of life. But if you don't know how to steer, they're nothing more than a pair of gilded shackles locking you into an illusion. In the admiring eyes of others, you might believe you're at the summit, but in truth, you're just circling a stage built from false flattery, where every mirror is warped. Power without wisdom. It's not just a formula for mistakes. It's an expressway to self-destruction. When power comes too early without being tempered by failure and honest feedback, you believe you're invincible until reality knocks. And it never knocks gently. If you truly want to keep both your beauty and your peace, don't seek more people who say what you want to hear. Seek those brave enough to say what you need to hear, even when it stings. Step away from sugar-coated words. As Seneca reminded us, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. Beauty will fade. Wisdom only grows when it's tested by fire. But character, if you choose to build it on the foundation of truth, will remain untouched by time. If today you recognized a piece of truth in what I've said, leave a comment, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Victory Stoic. Not to feed my ego, but to remind yourself never live on sweet lies.